Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy, the show that talks 100% LA Galaxy soccer. We're glad you could join us. Now it's time to sit back and relax as your hosts navigate through the twisting, turning, but never boring world of the five-time MLS Cup champion, LA Galaxy. And now, here are your hosts, Josh Guesman and Wendy Thomas.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I am your host, Josh Guesman, along with Miss Wendy Thomas. It's Thursday, live show Thursday. LA Galaxy actually play home games this week, which is a freaking miracle. I'll tell you that for sure. Lots of fun stuff to discuss. We're going to talk a little U.S. Open Cup, get you ready for the game on Saturday against Houston. So like I said, lots of stuff to go over. Maybe we'll have some time for your calls. We'll get into any other rumors or discussions that we can possibly get into and have an excellent time while we do it. Again, thanks for joining us. A busy week for the LA Galaxy in front of a very, very busy schedule. But first, let's welcome to the show, Miss Wendy Thomas. Wendy, how's it going?
It's going really well. How are you, Josh?
I'm a little exhausted. I'm gonna be honest with you. I had to get up. I had to get up at about 2 a.m. West Coast time in order to catch my flight back from Chicago. And so I made it back from Chicago, and I'm here, and I'm recording, and I'm excited to be here. But, I mean, podcasting or sleep right now, it's like kind of up in the air.
How was Chicago?
Chicago was excellent. I was there for all of 30 hours. It rained, it poured, it thundered, it lightning. I got to experience almost none of it. And my Lyft ride from the airport to the hotel was possibly one of the most interesting things that's ever happened, especially after I made the claim, Wendy, as I think a lot of us have. Well, I've never ranked anybody below like 4 stars. I mean, how bad would you have to be to get anything below 4 stars? And so this was my first 2-star rating, and I think I was probably being generous.
What did someone do to get a 2-star rating?
They first of all they drove past us in the airport line and just went around again. They were confused or something like that. Which, hey, starting off, you're in an airport. We've all driven in airports. They're hard to navigate. I'm not going to give anybody a hard time about that. That's fine. But whenever you add it up to the rest of the stuff, you're sort of like, oh, okay. Then this guy gets in and he's like, hey, my car makes a weird noise, but don't worry, it's fine. And by fine, apparently he meant that it would go approximately 42 miles an hour on a freeway when everybody else is going 70 miles an hour. And it kind of wobbled and shook a little bit while it happened. And it sounded like it was going to fall apart anytime it went over a bump. And so that happened. And then he got off the freeway for no reason whatsoever, which added another 15 to 20 minutes to our ride, which our ride was 22 minutes total to begin with. And he said it's because he got nervous on the freeway.
Oh,
and I'm like,
driving the freeway.
Yeah, I'm like, now that you mention it, I'm nervous in this car too. So, it was one of those things. It was, and of course, I was traveling with my father, and he was telling me how he always has horrible service regardless of what he has, and he's sort of that guy who always gets the bad service and all. So anyway, that was my trip to Chicago. Made it back, landed here back in Los Angeles. Wonderful weather here. It is amazing. I love Los Angeles, and I was only in Chicago for about 32 hours or something like that.
I was actually in the Lyft yesterday, too. I went to San Francisco to take a deposition. Yesterday, I was in the financial district, and I came back from the financial district to SFO, and I was in a Lyft that had my Lyft driver was a Russian guy who was really not a fan of San Francisco sexual politics, and he was driving like a maniac while spouting about politics, and I was just like, I do not want to die on the 101. Can you please take me to SFO without killing me? So Lyft rides everywhere. A lot of interesting stories. But you know what? It's cheaper than a taxi.
It's cheap, and you know what? It always makes you feel better that I can at least follow along on a map, right? It's like, hey, I may not know where I'm going, but the map says this is where I'm going, and I can at least tell if you're driving in the general direction of where we're supposed to be going. So anyway, no, it was good. I didn't get to watch the U.S. Open Cup match.
I saw it.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're gonna lean heavily on Wendy, but I did call some people, and I did get to watch some highlights, and I talked to a whole bunch of people, so I'm at least up to date on what happened with the LA Galaxy getting a 3-1 victory over Orange County SC. A heavily youthful lineup, I will start by saying, which is good because the LA Galaxy are going to need to rely on their youth as they have been gifted by this win, Wendy, with the ever popular right now more games, basically. So they went from 9 games in 38 days that they were going to have to play to now 10 games in 38 days. So every 3.8 days, see, this is the type of math I can do. I can move a decimal point, Wendy. Every 3.8 days, the LA Galaxy will be playing a game in the next 38 days, actually now 37. Nice. So yeah, it's extremely important that the young guys who came out and started and who did a good job, and there were a couple regulars in there, but for the most part, the young guns, as we call them, got out there and got this victory. Although I'm still of the opinion, Wendy, and maybe you can tell me that I'm crazy, that I probably would have preferred that they just lose the game and not have to worry about the U.S. Open Cup anymore. I know that might be unpopular. I know it's a cup, Wendy, but I looked at the schedule and said, don't need another game. Really don't need another game.
So ordinarily I would be a fan of us trying to put together a solid lineup for the Open Cup, and I'm fine with what Kurt Onalfo did. I actually think that the lineup made a lot of sense given injuries. But since we have such a thin squad, as you and I talked about before the start of the season, we have how many players in the roster? I think it's only like 23, 24. It's a really, really thin roster. Given that, compounded by the fact that we have so many injuries, we have so few players we could actually put on a field. I think we barely have enough. I mean, if you look at the 18 for yesterday, there's players in the 18 where I was legitimately thinking to myself, I don't know if they actually could take the field. I mean, because Gyasi Zardes and Jack Mack, they came out, but honestly, I was looking at our lineup and I said, I don't know if we really have more than 18 or 19 players that we can really offer to a game right now. Yeah. And so ordinarily, I love the idea of making a run at the Open Cup. I think this year it's going to be really, really hard because our squad is so thin. We have no reserves. We have no backups. We have a ton of injuries. It's going to be really, really hard to make a deep cup run.
Yeah, 27 right now listed on the roster. That includes Robbie Rogers, who isn't on the roster. So you have 26 players of a total of, I think, 28 is the total max now.
And then we have, in terms of injuries, there's Leggett, Baggio Husidic, Brian Rowe.
No.
There's
Daniel Steres.
Daniel Steres is out. And then
Jermaine Jones.
Jermaine Jones is out, maybe.
He's still out. He's not going to play. He's not going to play this weekend. Daniel Steres is not going to play this weekend. At least it doesn't look like it.
Interesting. Okay, so Jermaine Jones is not going to play this weekend.
I know. Everybody was sort of expecting that. Kevin Baxter was at training today and tweeted out that Jermaine Jones and Daniel Steres were both off to the side training, not with the full team, but doing sort of their own thing and getting back. And I think Kurt Onalfo confirmed that Jermaine Jones wasn't there, and it would be highly unlikely that Daniel Steres is coming back. So, I mean, that's sort of your injury update. So, if you're looking for those guys to be replacements in any of your lineups there, Wendy, you can push that out right now.
Oh, no, that's okay.
You're okay with Jermaine Jones not being there. I know most people are like, whew, dodged another one, but
all right. Okay. Well, then I think that we'll be able to put out a pretty decent lineup for Houston's game. But yeah, I mean, I think that the Open Cup is going to be really a challenge with the amount of injuries we've had. I thought last night's game was interesting. I think that it was Scott Utterson who tweeted out that this is an opportune moment for some of the forwards who have been on the LA Galaxy's roster for a while to make a case as to why they should remain with the LA Galaxy. Because if you think about it, Jack McBean, Ariel Lassiter, Bradford Jamerson, Villarreal, these are all players who've been with us for quite a while. And yet you have to sort of think, what is the expiration date for each of these players unless they demonstrate that they have the ability to take it to the next level, which is MLS?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the things we talked about at the beginning of the year, is that these players, and specifically you called out the names. I mean, you had, Jack McBean, Jose Villarreal, Ari Lassiter.
Bradford Jameson.
I mean, Jaime Villarreal still has some, we're not quite there with Jaime as we are with Jose.
He's still a kid.
Yeah, he's still a kid, so you're still getting there, but you want to see something out of these guys. And for the uninitiated, and for those who don't watch the LA Galaxy all the time, these are the names that they spout off whenever they say the LA Galaxy are so, have so much youth coming up. And then if you're an LA Galaxy fan or you watch the team on a regular basis, you know that a lot of these guys have had ample opportunities to do something and have not performed. And so you sit there, and again, I'm with you. What's the timer on these guys? And I thought that was one of the things that was going to happen this year, is that these guys were going to get significant playing time. They were going to get a chance to prove themselves. And if they could cut it in Major League Soccer, they were going to get to stay. And if not, they would be looking for new employment come the end of the year. And I don't know if that has changed, because if you look at who Kurt Onalfo has played so far, the only places he's gone young are the places that he's had to in terms of
the
injuries.
defense.
Yeah. And in terms of injuries, right? Like it was, and whatever else they decided to do on the defense. But yeah, I mean, Nathan Smith, the Rafa Garcia, even though we won't consider Rafa a young player, I know he'll be upset about that, but we won't consider Rafa a young player. You had Diallo, and you've had Steres and Romney, and now you even got Ariano in this game as well. So you've had some of these young defenders who've actually gotten time, but in the skill positions, let's call them the skill positions, and Jelle Van Dam will get mad at me for that. The skill positions, you haven't seen it from anybody. Hey, let's try to get a call in here. Let's see if we can actually do this. Give me 1 second and see if I can actually press the right buttons and do everything. All right, 805, who's this?
Josh, this is Scott.
Hey, Scott, how's it going, buddy?
Good. I just want to call in because I got a shout out.
You did get a shout out.
My tweet.
Wendy was talking about you, and I saw your tweet when I was in Chicago too, by the way. So I agreed with it 100%.
Great. So I'm just briefly go over kind of my take on those 4 players. I thought Jose Villarreal was excellent going forward. A couple of his crosses were a little sloppy, but overall he had some incredible key passes. However, his turnover led to the corner, which led to the goal. So I'm not quite sure he's a two-way player, although I am a big Villarreal fanboy. I thought McBean was, I don't want to say awful, but not good. He probably had 2 or 3 very, headers that he should have scored, at least put on target, and he didn't do that. I thought Jameson was very poor in the first half, not aggressive, had a few kind of Roman Alessandrini little take-ons that he was just stripped, and then he was just kind of slow to run back. It was much better in the second half, and Lasser to me was kind of average. So overall, I don't know. They did fine against a USL team, but I don't think anyone really improved their stock other than Jose Villarreal as kind of a late-game sub. So that's my take.
I heard a lot about Jose Villarreal. Somebody gave me this criticism. I won't tell you who. Somebody close to the team, though. They said about Jose Villarreal, if you look at the amount of space that he had, and when Jose gets space, he can do amazing things. And you see it from that first goal that he shot that was, 30-something yards out. So I agree with that. The problem is that anytime he gets into an MLS game, besides that goal in Vancouver that was eons ago, he usually doesn't get that space in that time. And so I wonder if in this game, and again, I didn't get to watch it, but somebody made this comment, is that, if you look at MLS, is he going to be able to, create that space? Is he a space creator in order to get those shots for himself? And does he think and play fast enough for Major League Soccer? Those were the 2 things that this person brought up to me. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, I don't think he does, to be honest. I agree with that person. He just it wasn't just that one. I do believe that when he had a lot of, I don't know how many, but good key passes, good crosses into the box, and I can't specifically remember if he was, how much space he had on each of those, but yeah, I can see that. I just think he deserves another shot as maybe 20 minutes in the game. I didn't think he did enough to say all right, he's on the squad, he should be getting significant minutes.
Right.
But of those 4 guys, he at least deserves kind of just I don't know, just 10 minutes in the game.
I get that. I think some of these guys, here's the thing that is sort of upsetting me about all of these players that you see in here, is that a lot of these guys are getting, 8 minutes or 10 minutes or, doing these different things, Wendy, and you look at what maybe they're able to do in those 8 or 10 minutes, and it's not a lot, and it kind of depends on what the role in the game is. I mean, even Jack McInerney, who has been getting some of those late game substitute roles, he's not impacting the game, but at the same time, what is his job whenever he comes on, and what's the scenario? I remember they brought Jack McBean in with 8 minutes left, and it was one of those things where they were winning, and it was 8 minutes, and somebody criticized his play, and I'm like, he's not supposed to really do anything except hold the ball up in 8 minutes, and that's sort of what he's supposed to do. So I wonder if we're not getting these guys who probably aren't used to being subs, if we're not giving them a fair enough look. What do you think, Wendy?
Well, the first 2 games of the season, Jack McBean started and played for the LA Galaxy. He's had a good number of minutes in which to prove himself. I think that with respect to all of these guys, they've at least had a fair shot. With respect to Bradford Jameson, in the minutes that he got in 2015, he actually did perform well, but then he sustained concussion injuries, which, each of these players, if you look at them individually, have independent issues which differentiate themselves from one another. Bradford Jamison specifically has had a number of concussions. That puts him, in a different kind of situation than someone like Jack McBean, who has not sustained serious injuries, but for whatever reason has not scored when put into an MLS game. Similarly, Jose Villarreal has a lot of technical ability in terms of how he moves the ball at his feet, and I think that he does have some creative vision. But at the same time, has he ever been able to string together a serious period of time where he did not sustain injuries? And one wonders whether he really has the ability to be a professional athlete in terms of being able to play in an MLS schedule in and out weeks at a time. We know that the battering these guys take when they play at the StubHub Center, that they have to travel. And I just don't think that Jose Villarreal can play an MLS schedule for any sustained period of time. So each of these players you would have to evaluate independently. What I wonder is, each of these guys has had a few years with the LA Galaxy. Is their talent waiting in the wings of the academy, waiting to come up to Los Dos? Or if not, and our academy is bereft of talent, we don't have anyone to replace them, then the other question is, what's wrong with our academy? Because we live in Southern California. It's potentially the richest vein of talent anywhere in the United States, anywhere in North America maybe, where you could have so many young people who play soccer who could be developed into professional athletes. And if they're not being developed by us, then what's wrong with us?
Yeah, no, there's something to that. I will say that I think in a lot of the academy products that you're seeing players who are developing into some really good players. I don't have the names off the top of my head. I have to go back and look at notes in order to actually bring anybody up. But I think you are seeing some of that. Now, what you're seeing at LA Galaxy 2 right now is that those academy players that were getting ready to time out are being signed to LA Galaxy 2 contracts, or the academy players are being brought up into LA Galaxy 2 playing. And so you're seeing that development start over again, basically. The first wave is done, and you're sort of seeing what that wave was, which was, the Lassiter and McBean and Jose Villarreal. And you could see what they do when they go down to sort of play as a group again. That group is still pretty talented, and you can see it because they did take an Orange County team, which I think has talent and has some good players and is built to play in USL. Not necessarily what LA Galaxy 2 is doing, which is playing super. I think most of the time their average age is like 22 and a half on LA Galaxy 2. So they're starting them really young, but you're getting that experience for some of those academy players. I want to see what this next wave does before I'm willing to say, oh no, the academy's crap, or they're not developing things, because I think that there's some young players right now that are just starting to get professional minutes at LA Galaxy 2 that could eventually be some of these players that can make an impact. But again, Wendy, it's always a numbers game, right? You're gonna fail 95% of the time.
But look at FC Dallas. Look at the New York Red Bulls. Tyler Adams came from the Red Bulls Academy, and he's a full-fledged professional player. Matt Miazga came from the Red Bulls Academy. He went to Europe already. FC Dallas has a number of players who've come through their academy and demonstrated they're completely capable of being MLS players. So if we're not developing players who are capable of entering MLS, then the question cannot be that we don't have an adequate access to talent, because this is Southern California. I think that you have to start thinking about, are we developing talent right? Should we be tweaking the academy? Should we be, approaching it differently? Because if literally of everyone who's come through, if none of the forwards that we developed can score goals, then, there has to be, there's something that's amiss, right? Because I think that a few of the defensive players have been okay. Are Nathan Smith and Bradley Diallo, are they academy products?
I don't know if they're full academy products. I know they're LA Galaxy 2 products. I know, I believe Nathan Smith was, because I think he was academy and then he went off to UCLA and then he came back to LA Galaxy 2. So I think that's how it is. I'd have to look at Bradley Diallo, but you're looking at some of the most sort of the guys who have made the biggest impacts. And, we'll throw Daniel Steres in there for a little bit, because they were certainly smart enough to bring him into LA Galaxy 2.
He's not an academy product.
No. I was saying they were certainly smart enough to bring him on to LA Galaxy 2 and see what he could do. And at least we're able to bring up
Dave Romney, he was not an academy product. They brought him into Los Dos.
Yep. But no, I think there's some of these. I have no problems with them going out and finding talent, throwing it on Los Dos, giving it a tryout, and then figuring out that it works and bringing it up to MLS. I think that's a good thing that they should be doing with LA Galaxy too. But you're right. Yeah. You want to see it. In the chat room, they're saying, obviously Zubac and Justin Dillon are two players who have a lot of, let's say, a lot of momentum behind them right now with LA Galaxy too. So, those are two guys who perhaps they're the next wave. So, I mean, it's not an empty cupboard.
Maybe. But, however, before the beginning of this season, you told me that one of the justifications for hiring Kurt Onalfo was because he had developed Jack McBean. That Jack McBean was going to be this enormous goal-scoring threat in MLS. And he did play some minutes in MLS. He doesn't appear to be a goal-scoring threat. And so the question is, yes, you can tear it up. Jack McBean tore it up in USL. He went abroad. He went to Coventry City. You can tear it up in USL. And last night is a perfect example of that. Our team was clearly the better team. Other than Jelle Van Dam, I don't know if there was a single starter from the LA Galaxy who was on the field. Maybe Rafa?
Yep, Rafa Garcia is now the technical starter. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, everyone else was, essentially a backup player. We were clearly the better team. I think that OC had their fair share of chances. I thought that they, acquitted themselves very well, and it was not a blowout by any stretch of the imagination. Both teams had opportunities to score goals, but at the same time, yeah, we tore up a USL team with our backup players, but none of those players, when they step on the field for MLS, really show that they're capable of being a full-time MLS starter on a regular basis.
Yeah, no, I think there's some truth to that. I will say this, that, you look at all of the forwards who have played and all the strikers, and we've been critical of this, besides Giovanni Dos Santos, who doesn't really play a striker position. He's sort of a more creative underneath guy. The LA Galaxy haven't gotten any goals from any of their strikers. Gyasi Zardes, Jack McBean, Jack McInerney. Anybody who's played in that position hasn't scored. And if you look at the minutes that Jack McBean was getting at earlier in the year, it was certainly during what I like to call the dysfunctional period. I think we have to sort of say, what was it, before Chicago and after Chicago?
After Chicago?
Yeah, before Jermaine Jones got injured and after Jermaine Jones got injured.
BCAC?
Yeah, exactly. Before Chicago, after Chicago. No, so I mean that's sort of where I'm thinking. So the deal is now that as you look at this, and certainly you saw a lot of young players. I will tell you, I think it's interesting, and I've argued with myself around in the circle. If you look at who played and who didn't play, and you're trying to figure out who's going to be paired with Gyasi Zardes up top, because I think you're going to see a more traditional 4-4-2 whenever they come out against Houston. I remember Giovanni Dos Santos off with the Confederations Cup, right? So who's going to be his partner? It has to be somebody. And I think that if maybe you could possibly throw Jose Villarreal underneath like they did with Giovanni Dos Santos, but I don't think any of us expect that Jose Villarreal is going to be able to play that same position that Gio plays, so perhaps more of a 4-4-2 with two strikers up top. And so who does Gyasi Zardes get paired with? The one guy who didn't get a lot of minutes in this game, and who actually came in for the midfielder, was Jack McInerney. So were they saving Jack McInerney to play on Saturday and start with Zardes on Saturday, or were they looking for somebody like McBean or Lassiter or Villarreal, and that's why they played those guys together to sort of see who would play on Saturday?
But Jack McInerney didn't really play that well in last night's game, whereas Jose Villarreal had that one amazing. I mean, the goal he scored was gorgeous. It was absolutely beautiful, and that shows, like, wow, this guy really does have talent. He has ability. He has, real technical ability, because, I understand that a lot of it comes from the opposition, the fact that they give you so much space to play in. But still, to score a goal like that, you do have to have some talent. And he was the one standout of the attacking players from last night's game who I thought looked really good. Of Jameson, Lassiter, McBean, McInerney, I don't know if they really stood out much at all. I really thought amongst the LA Galaxy players, other than Jelle Van Dam, it's not really fair. You can't really compare him to other players. He really seems like a man playing with children.
I was going to say,
but
man versus boys.
Other than him, I really thought that John Kempen was the standout player.
So here's the funny thing. Now, I got to watch some of this game. I didn't get to watch all of the game, and so I can give you, my sense. I thought that Kempen was fine. Kurt Onalfo seemed like he was fine as well. Somebody told me that they thought Kempen was very, very shaky on the night and was serious, thought that there was a good chance because Diop is coming back from international duty and Kempen has been playing with the team that Kempen could possibly step over Diop for a little while and at least start in against Houston. And they said that they are now questioning that sort of route and would think that Diop has the clear starter role over Kempen.
Well, I do not think that he has supplanted Diop or Rowe in terms of the pecking order. But I don't know. He looks shaky in the sense that he probably hasn't played frequently enough in, a real game. But he made a couple of very big saves last night that were pretty impressive. There was a point blank save that he caught that I was very surprised, because when I say that we were the better team, but both teams had their chances, OC could have scored on any number of occasions. And I think in the second half that John Kempen did keep them from scoring with at least a couple of really good saves.
That's good.
Now, whether he's accustomed to playing in a live game with fans and everything like that, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that he's not as accustomed to that, but he was probably the standout player other than Van Dam during last night's game, and the one goal, obviously, from Villarreal. Though I don't think that he is going to displace Diop or Rowe when Rowe comes back. I would expect to see Diop start this Saturday.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of where I'm leaning to as well. So I just thought it was interesting. It's so fluid. Whenever we talk about the goalkeeper situation, it's literally week to week with us right now. It's like, well, who's better?
It seems close to me. It seems very. I mean, in terms of, for example, when Van Dam is out, it's a huge drop off. Right, I mean, you can sense the drop off when you go from someone like Van Dam to Arellano or Romney. It's just an enormous gulf between them. With the goalkeepers, you're like Brian Rowe and then Diop. Is there a huge difference between them? I don't know if it's a big difference. And then now with Kempen, I mean, honestly, if these guys, if they really, one of them should really step up because it's theirs for the taking.
Yeah, that's sort of the thing that I see. I think there's a huge difference between all of them in terms of style, but in terms of what actually happens and productivity and, how good they are at keeping the ball out of the back of the net, that really is something that, you have to rank a goalkeeper on. How good are they at not letting the other team score? I don't know that there's a huge gap between any of them. So, I mean, for the most part, I'm sort of, okay, let's do it. I mean, whatever it is. In my mind, right now, if I'm telling you, if I had to, bet my life on it, I'm saying that a healthy Brian Rowe is the number 1, Diop's number 2, and Kempen's number 3. And,
yeah, I would agree.
And I don't think there's a lot of argument in there to sway from that. So I think that's just how I'm going to leave it for now. It's like one of those things. It's like, no, that makes sense. It makes sense in my mind. I'm okay with it. I think I can argue that point, and if I can argue it, then that's what it is. We're interested in all your calls. 949-734-4217. 949-734-4217. Give us a call if you have anything to add, or you want to talk about a specific topic or anything else sort of in between. We're here for you this night as we get ready for the Houston game coming up. Wendy, do you know how many days it has been since the LA Galaxy played a game at StubHub Center? And this doesn't count for the U.S. Open because it wasn't at StubHub Center, so it was at the Track and Field Stadium, which is outside of the main stadium.
We've played 4 games since then that were away games, and we had a week off for international soccer, so it's been at least 37 days.
That very good estimating. 42 days.
Ooh,
so
okay.
You weren't that far off at all. My math tells me you were 5 days off, which is actually almost a full week. But
your arithmetic, by the way, is aces.
That's that Arizona State education. All right, there you go. Go Sun Devils. All right. But anyway, 42 days since the LA Galaxy have last been at home at StubHub Center. Things that have happened since that last game is they have completely replaced the field. The field is all new grass. They do that this year almost every year around this time. So that's all new, and it was totally expected, and probably one of the reasons that they didn't play the game in the main stadium, although they have another U.S. Open Cup game that's going to come up on June 28th, where they're going to play Sacramento Republic, and so that's also going to be at the Track and Field Stadium. So just I think maybe they're saying Open Cup games Track and Field Stadium for now, which I don't mind all that much, or at least I'm not upset about it. I know some people get really upset that they don't play in the main stadium, but for me, the Track and Field Stadium's just fine for these lower crowd midweek games as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, so they got new grass, Wendy. They have new north and south ribbon boards that go up above the club seats. So the seats that are down at the level, there's ribbon boards, LED ribbon boards that go around the stadium now. So those are there. There's a new south side scoreboard. Which
I saw that.
Yep,
I saw that.
which people have been taking, and you were there at the 5K with me, and so we got to see that video board in action. So that was going on there, and then I'm trying to think. There's anything? Oh, they have at least started, and I imagine they're probably going to be pretty close to finish putting up the temporary seats. Everybody calls these permanent, and so just slap your friend when they say permanent. That's what I would suggest. The temporary seats that are going over the grass berm, those temporary seats that will be up for the next 3 years. So keep an eye on those as well. So you'll see that whenever you walk into StubHub Center on Saturday as well. And they're starting to change out those metal bleachers that we saw up at the top of the stadium in the upper section, the 200 level on the east side. They're starting to change those out. So some of the metal benches are now seats, and everybody asks what color those are, and they're green. They're green to match the green seats and everything else. So there was no color change there. I was hoping that maybe they put blue seats in, and that would cue some sort of really awesome, everybody gets excited that we have blue seats thing. But that doesn't seem like happening. But those are all sort of the things that have changed with the stadium that you will notice when you go on Saturday. So I just wanted to sort of point that out. I don't want people thinking they walked into the wrong stadium.
No, and you and I actually saw the new grass personally with her own two eyes this past weekend. Do you want to tell listeners about that?
We were standing on it. We were literally one with the field at one point. We Wendy and I and your boyfriend and a whole bunch of other people ran the 5K. Chris Klein ran the 5K.
He and I looked him up. He ran it in 17 minutes. Okay, he put me, my boyfriend to shame. That man is fit.
Yeah, I know he runs fast. This is when I saw Chris Klein. So I started running, and I was going, and I finished in 27:03 or something like that. 27, right over 27 minutes. Christian, your boyfriend, ran it in like 24 something.
Yes, yeah, I know. It was his best time ever.
Yeah, so that was really good. And so I ran in 27, which I was perfectly happy with. And I
ran it in 33, which is a 10:37 mile, which is pathetic, but that's okay because I'm improving every time. Perfectly
acceptable time as far as as long as you're not walking. Chris Hibble from the LA Galaxy, walking, then you're fine. But anyway, so I was running and I got to about mile 2.34. I'm right around actually a little over 2.5 miles. I see Chris Klein running towards me, and everybody else is running, against him. And he goes, "Come on, Josh, let's go, finish it up." And I said, "Chris, you're already done, aren't you?" And he's like, "Oh yeah." He goes, "I'm looking for my daughter." I'm like, "Okay, cool." Yeah, that was good. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate that. So he went back, found his daughter, and then ran with her. Luckily, I was able to beat him that second time, because then otherwise my confidence would have completely gone off. But he's in very good shape, and I don't think I'm ever going to beat him. Maybe
it was a lot of fun. He is a very fit, but I had Cosmo put the medal around my neck with my little medal showing that I ran it. So I actually felt like I had won.
Yeah. Christian, by the way, points out in the chat room that he ran it in 24:01.
Oh boy!
Which I say to you, Christian, if you were just a little bit faster, you could have ran it under 24. There was 2 seconds there that you dawdled, and that cost you a 23 time instead of a 24. So anyway, so that is that sort of. So we saw the grass. This is what I'll say about the grass, and I think this is going to be the case for Saturday. It may not look great, but for the most part, it felt very smooth, very stable. I don't think the players are going to see any seams. I think you may visually see seams, but it's not going to be, and this is sort of how it always is. It's not, I don't expect it to be bumpy or in bad shape. It just may not look, 100% perfect. Because it'll grow in over the next couple weeks. And the LA Galaxy have a bazillion games coming up in which they get to play on it. They have 10 games, which, let's see, it was 6 of them at home when they had 9. It's actually 7 of them at home with the 10. Because so that's it's kind of the good news, but it's not really.
Do you want to lay out the schedule for us?
Let's hit up this schedule because it gets a little crazy, a little hectic.
A little hairy.
So we have Saturday against Houston. Everybody knows that one. Then we go and then we start our Saturday, Wednesday. Okay, hang on to your butts because this is what it does. All right. Saturday, June 17th. That's this Saturday. Wednesday, June 21st is away at Colorado. That's going to be a difficult game at altitude. It always is. Colorado's a difficult team to play anytime because they don't like to actually score goals or try anything, and they usually just play defense. So trying to break them down will be interesting, even though they're probably one of the worst teams in the league. Then it's Saturday, June 24th, home to Sporting Kansas City, who is the number one team in the Western Conference right now. Then you're going to play the U.S. Open Cup game June 28th at the StubHub Track and Field Center against Sacramento Republic. Then it's July 1st, July 4th, July 15th, which even though it's a friendly and nobody wants to play it, it's still Manchester United. It's still, you're going to have to put legs out there and players out there and play. That's July 15th. Then July 19th, 4 days later, home to Vancouver. Then July 22nd, all right, that's only, 3 days? 3 days difference? Oh, my God. It gets worse every time I look at it. So 3 days... 3 days difference, Saturday, July 22nd, the day before my birthday, get your presents ready. And Saturday, July 29th is sort of when this sort of gets crazy, or at least that's the first full week break the LA Galaxy will have between July 22nd and July 29th. That is a tough schedule. And you got teams like Sporting Kansas City. You're going to have to play San Jose on the road again at Stanford Stadium. You have some teams who are still struggling but are looking better, like Real Salt Lake. You have Vancouver, who I never really know what to expect from Vancouver, but they're not bad. They're in 5th place in the West right now. You have New England, and then you have Seattle. I mean, to sort of close this out, it's just a ton of games, Wendy.
Gosh, this is a brutal schedule. I don't know what we're going to do.
Well, I think you're going to see a lot of these younger players play in games because you're going to have to. You're going to have to rotate some of this squad. And I know Scott, who called in earlier, will say, hey, these are professional athletes and they can play 2 games a week and all that stuff. And yes, up to a certain point, I agree with that. But the frequency of which they will be playing in these next couple weeks is a ton of questions. I mean, it's just
well,
it's
also
so
with
many
the
minutes.
injuries. I mean, think of our midfield. Jermaine Jones isn't back yet. I don't know what happens when he comes back, whether they start him, whether he disrupts it. But, I mean, what is our midfield? We don't have Leggett. We don't have Husidic. We basically have Rafa and Pedro. If either one of them gets injured, we literally don't have a central midfielder that we can offer.
No, you're absolutely right. And so it gets into, what happens. Listen, and I'm going to tell you this. You have all these games. You're going to have 10 games in 38 days. It's now 9 games in 37 days, all right, for the rest of this. And you're going to see that you're going to tell me that they're not going to have any more injuries throughout these games?
It's inevitable.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you say that they're going to make it through, that you haven't been watching the season. All right,
yeah.
You haven't been watching the season.
We're picking up injuries left and right.
Absolute question. It's crazy, and so you hope. And somebody like Daniel Steres seems like they're close. Jermaine Jones sounds like he's close. Now, as much as people hate Jermaine Jones, eventually he's going to be a healthy body, Wendy, and I'm all for healthy bodies playing. I mean, we're just
anyone who's healthy gets to play.
Yeah, and that's sort of how it looks right now. Let's go over just a couple little LA Galaxy news items. Didn't have a ton of time to put a bunch of this stuff together, but just be aware about the clear bag policy. This is something that has been sweeping NFL.
I got a call from my rep about this. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So this has been sweeping like the NFL, and I think Major League Baseball as well. They've all been sort of going to these clear bag policies. So, FYI, the Galaxy are giving out some clear bags if you're one of the X number. It's usually like the first 12 or 15,000 people who are in the stadium. You can get a clear bag. So I would suggest you do that because that's probably the easiest way. Otherwise, it's sort of like gallon Ziploc bags also qualify. So if if you end up having to buy a bag or something like that, you don't want to do that. Just get a Ziploc bag and do that. But this seems like it is a sports in America thing right now where these clear bag policies are being implemented, and it is a super pain for everyone involved. I am very lucky that I'm a press person and I do not have to adhere to this, and because I have a ton of stuff that I bring with me, and I'd have like 13 bags with me and all this other stuff. So, but anyway, just a heads up, okay? Clear bag policy, it's going to be in effect. If you listen to this podcast, you know what's happening. It started to happen, I think, at the LA Galaxy 2 game, at the U.S. Open Cup game that happened on Wednesday night. So it's going to continue. So this is new normal. All right, new normal. Everybody sort of
I smell lawyers. I know my own kind. I can sniff out a lawyer, and I can smell a lawyer's sticky fingers have been involved in the implementation of this clear bag policy.
Yeah, and so it seems like that definitely. So that's sort of what you got. The other sort of news that came out, which is kind of interesting. I don't know what this is going to produce, other than the immediate thing that they've announced, but Universal Studios Hollywood has joined an official partnership with the LA Galaxy and StubHub Center. They've said that the big thing you're going to see is the Universal Studios, globe that they have, that everybody sort of knows that's what that looks like, is going on top of the South scoreboard. So that will
Why?
Because that's the partnership that I'm sure they paid some good money in order to have that. And that's one of those things that I could care less about. It's like, yeah, sure, put that glove up there, right? Whatever. It's like you're paying money for that, I guess. I mean, hey, if you want to rent my chest space on the podcast, all right, just tell me what it's going to cost you, but tell me what you want there, and I think we can make it work. All right. So
it's for sale. It's for sale.
Yeah, the other thing that's sort of going to happen throughout the year is it says Universal Studios Hollywood, the LA Galaxy, and StubHub Center will also plan and execute a variety of promotional content across both social and digital media platforms, in addition to a range of in-stadium signage to maximize the impact of the partnership for fans. I'm just hoping there's like free Hollywood studio giveaway ticket nights, where this section gets to go see Harry Potter, and that's cool. And then I'm gonna.
I haven't been to Universal Studios since when I was a kid. I remember the shark ride. I remember the shark jumping out of the water when I went on the tour. That is almost the only thing that I remember about going to Universal Studios.
You need to go back. It's Hogwarts time. It's Hogwarts time. Bring your wand. All right. If you want to borrow one, you can borrow my wand that I have from going to the Universal Studios in Florida. So anyway, yes. That is what you have, and that's sort of where it is in terms of team news. We sort of already talked about the schedule. The Western Conference standings has Sporting Kansas City in first place, Portland Timbers in second, Houston Dynamo in third, FC Dallas in fourth. If you look at points per game, FC Dallas is actually the best team in the West. They've only played 14 games, and Sporting Kansas City has played 16 games, all right? So that's sort of the difference there. The LA Galaxy have only played 13 games, which is actually tied for lowest in the Western Conference. So don't freak out about the 1.38. Their 1.38 actually puts them in about sixth place, which isn't horrible. And so if you see where the points per game sort of lie right now, you can understand the Galaxy have some in hand. But these Wednesday games, they're going to start picking up some of those games. I guarantee not everybody has the same schedule.
We're not going to start picking them up if we're playing a game every 3 days, because how can you possibly win when you're playing every 3 days?
Yeah, no, and I agree. How can you win every, hey, this is the same team who would not win, 3 games on the road, or, even attempt to win 4 games on the road. So I'm done sort of predicting what they're able to do and what they're not. But
our predictive abilities are terrible, Josh.
No, it's not our predictive abilities. It's MLS is not lend itself to prediction. All right, don't bet on Major League Soccer. If there's one thing I tell you, if you listen to this podcast, that way you can bet on Major League Soccer. 1, you're an idiot, and 2, don't do it. All right, that's not this. You're gonna lose. All right, there's no winning in Major League Soccer. So you have the LA Galaxy in 8th, San Jose Earthquakes in 7th, so just 2 below the line, only really 1 point below the line if you look at the points. And so, as I'm saying, they're going to start picking up these games in hand, and they're going to start ticking off. So you're going to see the points per game either drop or rise to sort of match some of the around there, and we'll see where the LA Galaxy can sort of stabilize and find themselves. If you're looking at the Supporters Shield leader right now, it's Toronto FC, who has been playing unbelievable soccer over the last ever since the beginning of the season, quite honestly. 8 wins, 2 losses, 5 ties. They have 1.93 points per game. They played 15 games and have 29 points. The Chicago Fire. This is not a typo. The Chicago Fire.
This is not a drill.
Yeah,
we are not pretending.
This number 2 in the Supporters Shield right now. Then you get into the Western Conference, first Western Conference team with Sporting Kansas City, New York City FC in 4th, Orlando in 6th, Houston Dynamo in 7th overall. So that's sort of where you look and you can find all these other things. We have fun coming with Houston. I don't have an epic game preview because I'm too tired to do one. But we can certainly start talking about this LA Galaxy versus Houston Dynamo game on Saturday, June 17th at 8 p.m. This game will be nationally televised, which is why it's an 8 p.m. start time, so about a half an hour later than it normally is on Uno Mas. That's where you can find it. The Houston Dynamo come into StubHub Center 7-6-2, 23 points, 15 games played, 3rd in the Western Conference, 7th overall in the Supporters Shield. LA Galaxy 5-5-3, 18 points, 13 games played, so 2 less games. 8th in the Western Conference and 16th overall in the Supporters Shield race. Here's the fun thing about Houston's record, Wendy. They're 7-6-2. They are 7-0-1 at home, and 0-6-1 on the road. All right, they have one draw on the road. They've lost all their other games. They're coming off a 1-0 loss on the road to Seattle in a game they had plenty of chances to at least level the score and couldn't do it. And so what I've been reading about them, and the main difference between them and at home and them on the road, is that they can't seem to finish on the road, and they do finish at home, and that's the only difference, that they actually play very well on the road, but they're creating chances, they just can't put them in the back of the net.
So we have a team that can't win on the road versus a team that can't win at home.
Yes, that's absolutely 100%. Although the LA Galaxy did actually win at home, it just hasn't. So they're 1-3-2 at home so far. But that was all BC before Chicago.
Before Chicago.
All right.
Before Chicago. BC.
This is a quote unquote new team for the LA Galaxy after Chicago. A big things that you have to obviously remember, and we already talked about it, or at least we talked about one part of it. Giovanni Dos Santos off in Russia with the Confederations Cup and the Mexican national team. He's probably out for all of June, which is good because we only play like 30 games in June. Yeah, I know. It's tough. So you have that. And then Jelle Van Damme is suspended for this game, which is probably why he played in the U.S. Open Cup last night, on Wednesday night. He's suspended for this game for the yellow card accumulation, and so he will miss this Houston game. But the big thing on the other side of things, whenever you look at the Houston Dynamo, is there are two former LA Galaxy players coming back into StubHub Center, and one of them I think is going to be an absolute fan favorite. In fact, I expect to see a ton of AJ De La Garza jerseys in the house, or Luka Knows Heart shirts, hats, everything else in between, because I'm not sure there's a more beloved former player than AJ De La Garza, and so I'm very excited to see the welcome that he gets, and quite honestly to see him score 6 or 7 goals against the Galaxy.
Well, it's an inevitability. I think that the odds are high that if he gets to play, because I think he might have picked up an injury, that AJ will. I think there's going to be a huge crowd to welcome him. I certainly hope everyone gives him a warm welcome and a round of applause. Everyone knows I get yelled at on Twitter constantly by guys who hate to hear me say how much I love AJ De La Garza. I'll never be able to root against him, so I'll be cheering for him. Yeah, I'll when they announce his name in the lineups, I'm definitely gonna cheer his name.
Oh, I think there will be a loud applause. The other former LA Galaxy player, maybe not so much of a fan favorite, maybe somebody who has more of an axe to grind and is a general starter every single game for this Houston Dynamo team, is Leonardo back at center back. So you have AJ De La Garza on the defensive line as long as he's healthy, and Leonardo back there. So do you think Leonardo gets a warm welcome back to Los Angeles?
Yeah, I don't think anyone has a particular grind against Leonardo. I just think that a lot of people thought that maybe he wasn't suited to be a starting center back for the LA Galaxy, but he's been doing really well for the Houston Dynamo. So in a way, it was a trade that was well suited for both teams, because he gets lots of playing time now, which he didn't get when he was in Los Angeles, and we get to employ new and different center backs, which is something that our team wanted to do. So really, it was probably the right move.
Yeah, and this Houston Dynamo team, we talked about their struggles on the road, Wendy. Houston has only scored 3 goals on the road this year, and only one of those was from the run of play. So one of the things the LA Galaxy will have to do is set piece marking and make sure that they keep them from doing anything dangerous on set pieces, which unfortunately it seemed like they had a little bit of a lapse in the U.S. Open Cup game. But again, a little bit of a shifted lineup there. We're going to see what the lineup for the LA Galaxy looks like. Again, we talked about it a little bit. But the Dynamo have had zero stability in their lineup. They apparently played the last time when they played Seattle. That was their 15th different starting lineup of the year, which is a lot. And certainly, I think that Wilmer Cabrera, the head coach for the Houston Dynamo, is sort of doing his best Bruce Arena impression with different lineups, because Bruce usually didn't settle on a lineup until like September 1st. So it was always changing, but for Houston, they have a ton of talent. They are ridiculously good at home. They create so many chances at home. It's hard to believe they haven't won on the road. And to be honest, if I'm a betting person, I would say that they have a decent chance to take this LA Galaxy team. You're going to be missing Jelle Van Damme back on defense, which probably means that Dave Romney is back there, and I'm guessing Bradley Diallo will come in from the right backside and slot into the center. That's my guess. All right, and then
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say, and then Nathan Smith comes in on that right back, and you'll have Ashley Cole. That'll be your back line in front of probably Diop. So understand that that's, sort of what the makeshift back line is going to look like without Jelle Van Damme and with the Daniel Steres injury.
Well, one of the reasons, though, that Houston has such a solid home record is because of the weather conditions in Houston. I mean, it's really atypical. There's very few places in the United States where you experience, humidity up at 80%, 90%, brutal heat, and we're approaching the summertime. I don't expect that any team that goes to Houston can win in Houston because the conditions are such that it's an inhuman, intolerable heat. I mean, have you ever been to Houston? It feels like hell. I mean, it feels like you're waiting for the dog Cerberus to take you to Hades. That's how hot it is.
I lived in Arizona for 7 years, so and we do get humidity in July and August in Phoenix and Tempe. So I can imagine it, but not to the point of I was in Chicago and it was 90 degrees and humid, and I was like, get me out of here. I'm done. That's it. Too much.
I mean, we are so spoiled, Josh.
Totally. But so now the other flip side of the defensive side is sort of the offense. The middle of the LA Galaxy, midfield is going to be Joao Pedro, and then who are you going to pay? It's going to be Rafa Garcia is going to be paired with him, and then on the left it's probably going to be Boateng, and on the right it's going to be Ramon Alessandrini. That all makes sense, no problems. Then it's probably going to be Gyasi Zardes, and that's certainly something that I think a lot of people are sort of still scratching their head at of whether or not Gyasi can come in and make an effort and make an impact for this team, especially with Giovanni Dos Santos out. Otherwise, the LA Galaxy will be relying almost completely on Ramon Alessandrini, and we've talked about how that's a very bad thing to do, even though Ramon is great. But who is going to be paired next to him? Is it Jack McBean? Is it Jose Villarreal? Is it Ariel Lassiter? Is it Jack McInerney? Those are the guys they're going to have to figure out, and we're going to see if Gyasi Zardes can start to get on a little bit of a roll. I know.
Well,
I know. I was going to say, I have one other thing sort of on Gyasi Zardes that Kevin Baxter was kind enough to sort of pass along to me. And, they were asking about Gyasi Zardes and, sort of his lack of scoring. And Gyasi said, hey, it's all team game and everything needs to sort of happen. And, once it happens, everything's going to click into place and everything's going to fall. And when he was pressed on it, it was sort of like, hey, what else do you need to do? He goes, well, I need to get the ball. Right? And so it's one of those things. Do we think that Gyasi Zardes isn't getting the ball? Do we think the forwards, anybody who's played in that position, has gotten the ball in dangerous positions? Is it a forward issue, and this is something we talked about at the beginning, Wendy, or is it a distribution midfield positioning issue?
It could be both. I mean, but I have seen Gyasi Zardes get the ball in the past month. I have seen that. I mean, he regardless of whether he's getting the ball as often as he used to in the past, when he does get the ball, he's not receiving it or passing it along in a way that reflects that he is a starting striker in an elite team in MLS. I mean, he definitely looks off, whether he's getting the ball as much as he would like, as much, because obviously the more you get the ball, the greater the chance is that you're going to put it in the back of the net. But there's a catch-22 situation, right? There's the negative feedback loop, which is that if you're Romain Alessandrini and you're delivering the ball to a forward and you have Giovanni Dos Santos on one end and you have Gyasi Zardes on the other, who do you think is going to put the ball in the back of the net? I mean, so after he sees Gyasi Zardes receive the ball, deliver it tentatively with a pass, make an errant run, something like that, maybe he's thinking to himself, I don't know if I'm going to pass the ball to Gyasi Zardes. This guy Giovanni Dos Santos, he seems to know how to deliver a ball. Maybe he thinks, because part of it is perception. If people don't think that you can deliver a ball, well, that's going to minimize your opportunities to receive the ball.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, and I've said it many times, if something could just bounce off Gyasi Zardes and go into the net, we might have something here. But for the LA Galaxy, that hasn't happened so far, and so it's a real struggle. Something needs to change. I mean, the LA Galaxy, if they're going to be able to play without Giovanni Dos Santos, need to find another goal-scoring option. Who's that going to be? I don't know right now, and that's a scary proposition for the Galaxy, and it's one of the reasons that I think a lot of the rumors and a lot of the transfer rumors that you've sort of been hearing have been striker rumors. There's been the Zlatan talk. talk. There's been the Benedetto talk. So there's all these things that are sort of talking about what positions. Granted, there was a goalkeeper talk that is ridiculous, and I don't even want to mention it, so I won't. The LA Galaxy will not be signing a designated player goalkeeper. That's not going to happen. They're not Colorado. All right, just FYI. Okay. And I don't think why, and I would never spend, especially with the 3 goalkeepers I've had. I'm kind of happy with almost any goalkeeper that plays right now, and I don't think they're the issue. All right, so score more goals. I think that might be the best thing to sort of get. Again, this game goes off at 8 p.m. Again, a half an hour later than it normally is on Saturday. Make sure you're there, get there early, all the fun bag stuff and everything else in between. I have 2 things that I want to close the show on, Wendy. The first one is AJ De La Garza probably had one of the best tweets for LA Galaxy fans in the last 2 weeks, at least. Maybe longer. I don't know. It feels like it might even be the best tweet in the last couple of years if you understand the significance. The Houston Dynamo had to travel away to play North Carolina FC. North Carolina FC is the old North Carolina Railhawks, all right? So Houston had to travel to North Carolina for the U.S. Open Cup and ended up beating Carolina 3-2 in extra time. All right, and somehow got past them, and they played a lot of reserves in that game, okay? AJ De La Garza put out on Twitter, and I'll paraphrase it because I don't have it in front of me. He goes, finally, a soccer team that I played on beat the team from North Carolina, right? Because if you all remember the Railhawks and the LA Galaxy and the history they had in the U.S. Open Cup for over the past probably 6, 7, 8 years, it was go to Carolina, which was ridiculous to travel the LA Galaxy all the way across the country anyway, and then lose to Carolina, and then go to Carolina and lose to Carolina, and that's how the first round of the U.S. Open Cup went, I think, 2 or 3 years in a row. So AJ was, and somebody said, "Man, you're trolling," and he's like, "No." He goes, "No, seriously, I'm just relieved that one of the teams I was on finally beat them." So I thought that was good. And then a great email that we had, Wendy. Remember Sarah from South Pasadena?
Sarah from South Pasadena, of course.
Yes, absolutely. So Sarah wrote in, and she says, "Hey, Josh, Wendy, and Kevin. This is calm, serene Sarah from South Pasadena. You took my call last week, which I thought was funny. Yeah, I know. I was already like, yeah. So she was definitely listening. You asked if South Pasadena residents differentiate, and yes, we do, because we are a different city altogether. We have our own fire department, police force, and school district. And yes, there's the famous Fair Oaks Pharmacy ice cream shop. I highly recommend the Clown Sundae if you decide to go a Sweet Tooth's dream."
I've eaten at that ice cream parlor, and I have to say the ice cream is delicious.
All right, so Sarah from South Pasadena, Sarah from Southpaw, as she continues, she goes, "My daughter was the one who called the last show. I don't know if you heard the last show, Wendy, but we had an 11-year-old wonderful caller who was very smart, and I could not pronounce her name because I couldn't hear it, and I was trying to guess what it was, and I felt horrible because this young lady, clearly intelligent, had a great question. She clearly listens to the show too, and so I love anybody who listens to the show, but this young lady especially was great. So she says, "My daughter was the one who called the last show. When she heard you took my call," she goes, "it's safe to say that she totally geeked out. So of course she wanted to call, and her exact words were, 'Oh my gosh, Mommy, if I could meet them, that would be the best day ever. I mean, I just want to meet inspirational people.'" So first of all, isn't that wonderful? Yes. So first of all, she's 11. Her name is, I'm so going to try. She gave me the pronunciation on it, and I'm still going to screw it up. So I'm just letting you know. It's Amaris, I believe, or Amaris. Listen, Amaris, you can meet me, Wendy, at any game that you want. Just let us know when it is, and then you can personally teach me to say your name so I don't sound like an idiot anymore. All right, and we would be happy to talk to you and all that stuff. She also goes on because she says she's a goalie playing on the Development Academy's U13 squad.
So Amaris,
I know.
Next Hope Solo.
Yes, and she goes, Sarah says, "So we think she's pretty badass." And yes, I can call my kid badass. She's been going to Galaxy games since Beckham first stepped on the pitch in LA. In fact, she was asleep in my arms during his first game as the crowd roared in applause around her. So She says when she's
Amaris,
right?
you can come and see me anytime. I'm in section 109.
There we go. I'll finish it up. When she's not dreaming about vying to rob Ashlyn Harris from her job on the U.S. women's national team, she studies hard and wants to do broadcast journalism. She'll be starting 7th grade in the fall. Thanks so much for taking her call. She called me this morning at work and was flipping out, but then she also said you were having a hard time pronouncing her name, so I offered to get in touch and tell you her name so she could get her shout out. She loves your show and listens while she's doing homework. Thanks again for taking both of our calls, and have a great day. So, Amaris, thank you for calling or for calling in, and then Sarah from Southpaw. Or South Pass, I guess. It's South Pass? Is it South Pass?
South Pass. I have several friends who live in South Pass, and they are very proprietary about their hometown.
South Pasadenaans? Is that the
South Pasadenans?
Denans? I don't know. It's the whole thing. But anyway, so anyway, Sarah and Amaris, well, yeah, absolutely. Anytime you want to meet us, just let me know. You have the email here, and I'll be sure that we get in touch, and I'll make sure Wendy's there as well. So yeah, let us know. So that's it. If you want to write into the show, you can always do it. cornerofthegalaxy@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Twitter @Galaxy Podcast and all the fun stuff that's in between. And I'm sure you'll get the rest of that from the close of the show. But Wendy, why don't you tell people where they can find you, and we'll get on out of here.
You can find me at American Soccer Now and Corner of the Galaxy, and on Twitter @BardsBlonde.
And of course, go to @Galaxy Podcast on Twitter or @JGuesman on Twitter for my Twitter accounts there, trying to give you all the latest LA Galaxy news. I will be there on Saturday. Not missing any more games for a little while, so that's a good news. And the good news is there's only about a bazillion games to play. So we'll see how the LA Galaxy can do through the schedule. Playing Houston, AJ De La Garza, Leonardo back at StubHub Center for the first time since being traded. A lot of fun to be had on Saturday. Plus, your LA Galaxy are back for the first time in 42 days. So it's been a while since we've been at StubHub Center. Can't wait to see all of you out there. For Miss Wendy Thomas, I'm Josh Guesman, and you've been listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram @Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. And for all of your independent LA Galaxy news, discussion, and entertainment, including this podcast, head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. Fans, thanks for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.